If you have ever watched a movie, chances are you've watched one directed by Steven Spielberg. Surely he has the Midas touch when it comes to cinema, or does he? But I recently watched one of his from a while ago for the first time, and well, it kinda went off the rails. And then it reminded me of another movie he did that also went off the rails. And with Disclosure Day recently releasing, which I haven't seen yet, but I have a feeling I know where the story is going, I have to say, Steven Spielberg, why do you start some movies on a great premise and then take them into cuckoo land for no reason? That's right, today I'm talking about 3 movies where Spielberg went off the rails and brought his films into a place where they really didn't need to go. Also, spoilers ahead for all the movies I'm about to discuss, obviously. Alright, number 1, AI, Artificial Intelligence. Spielberg's AI came out in 2001. Really quickly, if you haven't seen it, AI takes place in a futuristic society in which there are both humans and human-like robots called mechas. Mechas serve humans, basically. The main story follows one family whose son Martin is sick and medically frozen while they try to come up with a cure. In the meantime, the parents end up adopting a child mecha named David, played by Haley Joel Osment. And this is new technology that's a big deal because they've never had like a child mecha before. So the film follows the parents figuring out if they can bond with their robot child David, and we get to see the world through David's eyes, which is quite childlike. And then things get complicated because remember how their real biological son, Martin, is frozen because he's sick? Well, turns out there's a cure and Martin comes home. Now Martin and David have to navigate being siblings, and the whole family really has to navigate being a family. Things get challenging and contentious, and eventually the parents consider bringing David back to the factory to get turned off, which would be like killing him. Wow, what a compelling story, right? I mean, think about how much rich content we have here. This is a story about the meaning of life, isn't it? What does it mean to be sentient? Are sentient robots any different than people? And is it ethical to turn them off or abuse them? What does it mean when a mother feels like she has to choose her real son over a robot that looks and acts just like a real boy? Isn't that some rich and fascinating content that we could explore deeply? Except we don't do that! That's not where the story goes! It might start that way, but after David's mom abandons him in the woods, the story is all about how David has to find a magical blue fairy he heard about in a story so that he can be turned into a real boy and then his mother can love him and accept him. And I know what you're thinking. Shayna, that sounds compelling too, a real-life Pinocchio story? But it's not. The film just goes off the rails, alright? David and Jude Law, who's like a male escort mecha, they go on a bizarre journey to the end of the earth to find the blue fairy. Jude Law gets captured by the anti-mecha police. David meets his maker, the scientist who invented him. And then David fucks off and tries to go kill himself because he's so distraught to learn that there's a bunch of other Davids, and his maker just doesn't even seem to care or follow him. What's that about? David finds a blue fairy underwater, but it's just a statue, so no matter how many times he wishes to be a real boy, it doesn't come true, and then he dies because his power runs out. Oh, does that sound like a poetic and tragic ending? Well, it's not the ending! The ending is aliens! 2,000 years later, aliens find David and they bring his mother back to life for one day, and David gets to experience the mother-son love he missed for one day, the end. Steven Spielberg, you had me in the first half! Why did you make us chase a blue fairy? This could have gone in so many ways. It could have been about David trying to make it on his own, and his mother being unable to handle the guilt of abandoning him, and then she goes looking for him. It could have been about the way David finds other abandoned mechas and starts a new life and turns into a completely different person from the innocent little boy he was. Anything other than prostitute Jude Law and blue fairies and aliens. By the way, I think aliens are a common theme here, maybe. You'll see later on. The problem I think I have with this movie is that it could have embraced the darkness a little bit. It showed some darkness with humanity, and then it went all silly. And this is a problem I have with Steven because this precise issue comes up in the next film I want to talk about. Number 2, The Terminal. Steven Spielberg's The Terminal came out in 2004. Starring Tom Hanks, it's about Victor, a guy from a completely made-up European country who gets stuck at JFK Airport in New York for political reasons. Basically, his fake country doesn't exist anymore because of a coup, and he cannot return to his old fake country or enter the United States. He's just stuck in the airport nationless. Wow, what a horribly depressing but also compelling story, right? Doesn't this sound very serious? I mean, you have the red tape of bureaucracy impacting an individual in the most extreme way possible, and it's inspired by a true story? Guess we better prepare ourselves for 2 hours of seriousness. Nope, it's a romantic comedy! Once again, where we could have leaned into the dark, Spielberg brought us to a silly place. Now look, some parts are interesting, alright? Like Victor has to figure out how to survive in the airport without any income and find some clever ways to do so. But instead of showing just how fucked up it is that the government or airport or whatever can't provide some temporary assistance so that he can eat and live while he's in no man's land, they just kind of make it like a big joke. Like the field commissioner is watching Victor be clever and is angry about it and thinking of ways to make things difficult for Victor, but it's like kind of silly that he's doing this instead of like totally fucked up. And then if that weren't enough, he has the hots for Amelia, a flight attendant, and he woos her and takes her on dates. Okay, side note, if Victor can create a romantic dinner at an airport he's trapped in, then there's no excuse for the rest of us and our partners. Time to plan a date night. Anyway, the whole movie is very charming and cute, so I have less gripes with it than I do with AI. At least once I adjusted to the tone I was not expecting, I could temporarily suspend my disbelief and find the movie entertaining. But still, the movie finished and I was left thinking, sure, that was fun and inspiring and felt good, but what would be the real story? How would that play out? Up next, number 3. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Steven Spielberg's 4th installment of the Indiana Jones series, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, came out in 2008, and boy was I excited to see it. Look, I'm not going to do a big rundown of the plot for this one, okay? Just know that Indiana Jones is a franchise. It follows Indy, an archaeologist slash professor. He gets himself into adventures around the world, often in search of some sacred, special archaeological item, be it the lost Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, or some mysterious crystal skull. The franchise is pretty great in my opinion, and Shayna has fond memories of watching these early on. They have a style to them. There's humor, adventure, stunts, a touch of the supernatural, but it all feels cohesive for movies 1 through 3. So there was a big break between the 3rd and 4th movie, okay? The 3rd movie, The Last Crusade, came out in 1989, and as I mentioned, The Crystal Skull came out in 2008. So when I went to see it, everyone was buzzing about how it could compare to the originals. And you know what? The movie started out strong. There's some great parts to it. The pacing and certain elements were very similar to the originals. There's one incredible shot where, like, Indy has to use his whip to, like, jump and sling himself, and it's great cinema. And I always fall into the same trap with this movie. I go into it, and I love it. I feel invigorated. I'm thinking this is like the others. And I even like the whole fact that he has a son, and LaBeouf does a fine job playing him. But the movie slowly gets a little goofy as it goes on, and I accept it for a while, even the part with the swinging monkeys. If you know, you know. It's a little ridiculous, but I accept it. But eventually, it's like they wrote themselves into a corner, and the answer to the mystery of the crystal skull is aliens. See, I told you it would come back up. So aliens made the crystal skull, and you see if you use it right, it gives you all the knowledge, and this evil Nazi villain lady uses it at the end, and it's too much knowledge, and it's overwhelming, and it kills her. And look, every Indy Jones movie ends with the villain having like an epic death, okay? The Last Crusade is my personal favorite, where the guy drinks from what he thinks is the Holy Grail, but it's not, so like very quickly through stop animation, he like turns into a skeleton and dies. Yeah, that terrified me when I first saw it, and yet I love it. So having the villain die in this one in a dramatic way isn't really off-brand, but I think we just went a little too far with it being tied to aliens. Oh, sorry, I mean Steven went too far with that. His story started to turn goofy, and then he just went too far with it. Also, I just realized that another Indy Jones movie came out in 2023, and I never bothered to see it, but now that I'm talking about it, I think I should. And before you come for me, I'm not saying all this to be a Spielberg hater, alright? I told you I like a lot of his movies, especially Indiana Jones. In fact, one movie that he did so well was Schindler's List. This is a movie he definitely did not take down a zany direction, and thank goodness. Spielberg completely recognized the weight and importance of honoring and respecting the atrocity that was the Shoah. So I'm just saying, Steven, I know you can stay on point and not go silly, because you did that for 3 hours with Schindler's List. Why can't you take some of your other movies a little more seriously? Surely not all movies will be about the Shoah, so I understand they don't all have to be serious. In fact, the Terminal showed you can do romance and comedy. But I'm just saying, some stories don't need to be a comedy or a romance or kids chasing blue fairies, okay? It's okay to write a fictional story and make it a little more serious. If you can explore serious topics when you do a historical film, you can do it with fiction, and you don't need to rely on aliens to do it. Speaking of which, Disclosure Day just came out last week. Spielberg's most recent film, and honestly, the trailers look compelling, but I can already tell the ending is going to be aliens. Or maybe not. Maybe it will be Emily Blunt chasing after a blue dragon and Josh O'Connor having a romantic dinner in the middle of the world as we know it ending. Who's to say? So tell me, what did you think about these movies? Did you enjoy them? It's totally okay if you do, by the way. I'm not even saying them bad movies. I'm just saying Spielberg went in weird directions that I think took away from the premise that made the movie compelling in the first place. We could have explored things we didn't get to explore. Tell me, what's your favorite Spielberg movie, and have you seen Disclosure Day? And while you're at it, will you like the video and subscribe to my channel, because I really need help in making it grow? Okay, thank you, bye!